The asterisk celestial sentinel asterisk drifted silently in the void, its sleek, silver hull reflecting the faint glow of distant stars. Inside, Commander Ethan Grayson stood by the wide viewport of the command deck, his sharp blue eyes scanning the sprawling expanse of Orion Nexus Station Asterisk. The station, a colossal structure of interlocking rings and glowing corridors, pulsed with life. Ships of every size and shape buzzed around it like insects swarming a hive, their engines leaving faint trails of light in the darkness. For years, Ethan had watched this same scene unfold, alien vessels docking, unloading goods, and departing for the far reaches of the galaxy. He had grown familiar with the rhythms of the station, the patterns of its life. But today something felt different. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a subtle weight pressing down on him. Orion Nexus was no ordinary station. It was the heart of galactic trade, a meeting point for countless alien species. The Velthar asterisk, with their shimmering, iridescent purple skin, moved gracefully through the halls, their long fingers clutching pouches of rare crystals that seemed to hum faintly with energy. The towering ethereals asterisk, their translucent forms flickering like candlelight, filled the air with their haunting, melodic voices that seemed to echo in the mind as much as in the ears. And then there were the granite asterisk, hulking beings of living stone, their heavy footsteps resounding like thunder as they carried crates of unyielding metalworks. Ethan had seen it all. 12 years aboard the asterisk celestial sentinel had made him a quiet observer of the galaxy's diversity. Yet, as he stared out at the station, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to disrupt the delicate balance of this place. The quiet hum of the ship's systems was broken by a voice. "Commander, there's something unusual on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Kale his tone steady but tinged with unease. Ethan turned, his boots making a soft metallic thud against the deck as he approached Kale's console. The Zarith officer, a reptilian being with emerald-green scales and piercing yellow eyes, was hunched over the monitor, his clawed fingers dancing across the controls. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Ethan asked, leaning over Kale's shoulder. Kale pointed to the screen. "Here, sir, this ship, it's massive, far larger than any trade vessel we've seen." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he studied the image. The ship was unlike anything he had seen in years. Its dark, angular hull seemed to absorb the surrounding light, giving it an almost predatory appearance. Weapons bristled along its surface, their design sharp and menacing. But what truly caught Ethan's attention wasn't the size or the armaments, it was the signal the ship was broadcasting. "This can't be right," Ethan murmured, his voice barely audible. "That's a human code." The words hung in the air like a shadow. A tense silence fell over the command deck as the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Humans. The word alone carried a weight of fear and mystery. 40 years ago, humanity had been exiled from the galaxy, cast out by the Galactic Council for their violent tendencies and relentless ambition. The stories of their wars were legendary. Entire planets burned to ash, civilizations brought to their knees. And then, just as suddenly as they had risen, humanity had vanished, banished to the farthest reaches of the stars. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The stories he had heard as a child came rushing back, tales of human fleets tearing through alien defenses, their refusal to bow to any authority but their own. He had always thought of them as myths, exaggerated accounts of a long-dead species. But now, staring at the screen, he wasn't so sure. "Get me Station Commander Xylan," Ethan ordered, his voice firm despite the unease gnawing at him. Kale nodded, his claws tapping a sequence into the console. Moments later, the screen flickered to life, revealing the face of Commander Xylan the leader of Orion Nexus. Xylan was Zarith like Kale, but his appearance was far more imposing. His scales were darker, almost black, and his face bore the scars of countless battles. One of his eyes was a milky white, a reminder of a war fought long ago. "Commander Grayson," Xylan said, his voice low and gravelly. "What is it?" Ethan straightened, his hands clasped behind his back. "Sir, we've detected an incoming ship. It's called the *** Eclipse Reclaimer ***, and it's ancient. What's more, it's broadcasting a human code." Xylan's expression darkened. For a moment he said nothing, his gaze distant, as if he were recalling a memory he had tried to bury. Finally he spoke. "Humans, after all this time." He let out a low hiss, his sharp teeth glinting in the light. "Allow them to dock, but watch them closely. Even exiles have rights under galactic law, but we cannot trust them. Not after what they've done." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied, though a part of him wanted to protest. He had never encountered a human before, and the thought of meeting one filled him with both curiosity and dread. As the screen went dark, Ethan turned back to Kale. "Prepare the docking bay," he said, "and alert the crew. I want everyone on high alert." Kale nodded, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Understood, Commander." Ethan returned to the viewport, his mind racing. The *Eclipse Reclaimer was on its way, and with it came the ghosts of humanity's past. What did they want? Why had they returned now after all these years? As the station's lights glimmered in the distance, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Something was coming, something that would change the galaxy forever, and he would be at the center of it all. The *Eclipse Reclaimer * loomed over the docking bay like a shadow of ancient power. Its dark, angular hull seemed to drink in the light around it, casting the smaller ships nearby into stark insignificance. The station trembled faintly as the massive vessel locked into place, its size and weight a silent declaration of dominance. The alien workers in the bay paused in their tasks, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and unease. Whispers rippled through the crowd, their voices hushed as if speaking too loudly might awaken something dangerous. Commander Ethan Grayson stood at the edge of the observation platform, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. His gaze was fixed on the ship, his chest tightening with a strange mix of curiosity and foreboding. He had seen countless ships pass through Orion Nexus, from sleek Velthar trading vessels to the crystalline crafts of the Ethereals, but this was different. The *Eclipse Reclaimer felt alive, as though it carried with it the weight of forgotten battles and untold stories. The docking ramp extended with a low, mechanical groan, its edges jagged and worn from years of use. A faint hiss of air escaped as the ship's hatch opened, and then they appeared, the humans. They descended slowly, their boots echoing against the metal ramp. There were 5 of them, their movements deliberate, their presence commanding. They didn't glance around nervously or hesitate as most visitors to the station did. Instead, they walked with quiet confidence, their postures straight, their faces unreadable. At their head was Captain Adrian Cole ***, a man whose presence seemed to pull the air from the room. Ethan's eyes locked onto the captain, studying him intently. Adrian was tall, his uniform a deep gray that bore the marks of time, faded patches, faint scuffs, and frayed edges. Yet despite its wear, the uniform was immaculate, a testament to the discipline of its wearer. His face was sharp, his jaw strong, and his piercing gray eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Those eyes unsettled Ethan the most. They were not the eyes of a desperate exile or a reckless warrior. They were calm, calculating, and impossibly focused, as though Adrian were already several steps ahead of everyone in the room. "We come in peace," Adrian declared, his voice steady and clear. It carried no hint of hesitation, no trace of the wild chaos that the stories of humans had painted. Instead, it was measured, almost soothing, yet beneath the surface, there was an undeniable edge, like a blade hidden beneath silk. The words hung in the air, and for a moment no one spoke. Ethan felt a flicker of uncertainty ripple through him. These were not the humans he had imagined. Where was the fire, the reckless ambition, the untamed ferocity? These people were composed, disciplined, and far too calm. It unnerved him. Commander Grayson, Adrian said, turning his gaze to Ethan, "We are ready to meet with your leaders." Ethan nodded, masking his unease with a practiced neutrality. "Follow me," he replied, his voice firm. He led them through the winding corridors of Orion Nexus, the humans moving silently behind him. As they passed, alien workers and officers stopped to stare, their expressions a mix of fear and fascination. The humans paid them no mind, their focus unwavering. The group arrived at the office of *** Station Commander Xylan***, the door sliding open to reveal the Zareth leader seated behind a wide, curved desk. Xylan's dark, scarred face was unreadable, but his sharp yellow eyes watched the humans with the intensity of a predator sizing up potential prey. Adrian stepped forward, his movements smooth and deliberate. "Commander Xylan," he began, inclining his head slightly in a gesture of respect. "I am Captain Adrian Cole of the Eclipse Reclaimer. We have come to request passage through your space. Our people wish to return to our homeworld Terra after decades of exile." Xylan's lips curled into a bitter smile, his sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "Terra," he repeated, his voice low and mocking. "You mean the world your kind abandoned when you were cast out? The world you burned with your wars and left to rot?" Adrian's expression didn't falter. "We seek only to reclaim what was once ours. We have no intention of causing conflict." Xylan let out a harsh, hissing laugh. "Terra is no longer yours, Captain. It belongs to the *** Dominion now. They've turned it into a mining colony, stripped it of its beauty and filled it with machines. Whatever you hope to find there is long gone." Adrian's gray eyes didn't waver. "Under galactic law, we have the right to pass through your space. That is all we ask." Xylan's laughter faded and his expression hardened. "You are correct. The old laws grant you passage, but make no mistake, human, your kind is not welcome here. You have a right to exist, but that does not mean we trust you." Adrian inclined his head again. "We understand." The meeting ended shortly after, the humans leaving the office with the same quiet composure they had entered with. Ethan escorted them back to the docking bay, his mind racing. Something about the humans felt wrong. They were too calm, too prepared. Their request had been simple, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their mission than they were letting on. As the **Eclipse Reclaimer** prepared to depart, Ethan lingered in the shadows of the observation deck, watching the ship intently. The docking clamps released, and the massive vessel began to drift away from the station, its engines humming softly. Just as it disappeared into the darkness, Ethan noticed a brief flash of light from one of its windows, 3 short bursts followed by 2 long ones. A signal. Ethan's heart quickened. Who were they signaling and why? He turned away from the viewport, his mind heavy with questions. The humans had come in peace, or so they claimed. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their arrival was the beginning of something far larger, something that would ripple through the galaxy in ways no one could yet predict. The *Eclipse Reclaimer* descended through the thin, dust-filled atmosphere of Mars, once called the Red Planet, now a world stripped of its soul. From orbit, the planet's surface had looked like a cracked, blood-red mirror, its once-proud plains and mountains carved into jagged scars by relentless mining machines. As the ship approached closer, the devastation became even more apparent. Towering drills and sprawling refineries dominated the horizon, their massive forms belching plumes of dark smoke into the sky. The ground was a patchwork of craters and trenches, glittering faintly with exposed veins of precious minerals. This was no longer Mars. It was Ares Prime Asterisk, a world of ash and industry under the cold rule of the *** Dominion ***. Captain Adrian Cole stood at the viewport of the Eclipse Reclaimer, his expression unreadable as he gazed at the ruined planet below. His crew remained silent behind him, their faces grim. For those who had grown up hearing tales of humanity's first great colony, the sight of Mars in its current state was a bitter reminder of how far their people had fallen. Adrian's gray eyes flickered with something deeper, anger perhaps, or resolve, but he said nothing as the ship landed with a soft, mechanical hiss. The landing platform was a sprawling expanse of blackened steel, surrounded by towering walls and patrolled by Crystar guards. The guards themselves were as cold and unyielding as the machines they... The tour ended in a vast control room, its walls lined with glowing panels of crystal that pulsed faintly with energy. Zyrek turned to face them, his faceted eyes gleaming. "You see now the greatness of the Crystar Dominion," he said, his voice ringing with pride. "We have taken your broken world and made it whole. Your people should be grateful." Adrian inclined his head slightly, his expression giving nothing away. "It is impressive," he said carefully. "Thank you for showing us." Zyrek's crystalline face twisted into another cold smile. "Of course. We are always eager to share the fruits of our progress." As the humans left the control room, escorted by a pair of guards, Adrian's calm facade began to crack. His jaw tightened and his gray eyes darkened with barely restrained anger. But he said nothing, his steps steady as they made their way back to the landing platform. That night, under the cover of darkness, Adrian and a small team slipped away from the Eclipse Reclaimer. Guided by an old map smuggled out of the Dominion's archives, they made their way to the outskirts of the mining facility, where the jagged landscape gave way to a network of hidden caves. The air was colder here, the silence broken only by the faint hum of distant machinery. Inside the caves they found them, the survivors. The humans who emerged from the shadows were gaunt and hollow-eyed, their faces lined with the marks of hardship and despair. They wore tattered clothes, their movements cautious and wary. But there was a spark in their eyes, a flicker of defiance that had not yet been extinguished. At their head was *Leela Cross ***, a woman whose presence was as fierce as it was unyielding. Her dark hair was streaked with silver, and her sharp green eyes burned with a fire that refused to die. "You're late," Leela said, her voice low but steady. There was no accusation in her tone, only a quiet determination. Adrian stepped forward, meeting her gaze. "We're here now," he said simply, "and we're not leaving without a plan." Leela studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good, we've been waiting for this." In the dim light of the caves, the two leaders spoke in hushed tones, their voices carrying the weight of hope and desperation. Adrian listened intently as Leela described the Crystar's defenses, their weaknesses, and the growing unrest among the workers. He promised her that the time for action was coming, that humanity would not remain silent any longer. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Adrian and his team returned to the Eclipse Reclaimer. The ship's engines roared to life, and it rose into the polluted sky, leaving behind the shattered remains of Mars. But in the caves below, a fire had been lit, a fire that would soon burn brighter than the Crystar could ever imagine. The *Eclipse Reclaimer* moved like a phantom through the void, its path winding through the forgotten remnants of humanity's once proud colonies. Each stop was a wound reopened, each world a grim reminder of how far humanity had fallen. Yet beneath the sorrow there was something else, a flicker of defiance, faint but unyielding, like embers waiting for the right breath to ignite into flame. The icy moon of Europa stretched out beneath the ship, its surface a cracked expanse of frozen water, glimmering faintly in the dim light of Jupiter. Beneath its frozen crust lay vast oceans, teeming with alien life, but for the humans forced to toil here, it was no paradise. The Eclipse Reclaimer landed near one of the underwater processing plants, its sleek silhouette casting a long shadow over the ice. Adrian and his crew descended into the facility, the air growing colder as they were escorted through long, sterile corridors. The walls were slick with condensation, and the faint hum of machinery reverberated through the structure, a constant reminder of the relentless work being done below. The humans here were pale and gaunt, their faces hollow from years of exhaustion. They worked in silence, their hands raw and trembling as they cleaned endless streams of alien fish hauled in from the depths. The smell of brine and decay clung to the air, thick and suffocating. Guards, tall and insectoid with chitinous armor that glimmered under the harsh lights, patrolled the facility with cruel efficiency. Their sharp, clicking language echoed through the halls, a sound that made the workers flinch instinctively. Adrian's face remained calm, but his fists clenched at his sides as he watched a young boy, no older than 12, struggle to lift a heavy crate of fish. The boy stumbled, the crate crashing to the ground, and a guard immediately descended upon him, raising a shock baton. Adrian's crew tensed, but a subtle gesture from Adrian held them back. They could do nothing now, not yet. Later, in the shadows of the loading bay, Adrian met with a small group of workers who had been waiting for him. Their leader, a wiry man named Jonas, spoke in a hushed, urgent tone. "We've been gathering supplies. Weapons, too, when we can smuggle them past the guards. But we need more time, we're not ready yet." Adrian placed a hand on Jonas's shoulder, his gray eyes steady. "You'll have your time," he promised. "When the signal comes, you'll know. Until then, stay strong." The skies of Titan were a swirling, golden haze, thick with methane clouds that blocked out the sun. The surface was a cold, desolate wasteland, its rocky plains broken only by the towering silhouettes of methane refineries. The air was unbreathable, the ground slick with oily rain that fell in an endless drizzle, pooling in toxic lakes. The humans here lived in darkness, their existence confined to the sprawling mining complexes that burrowed deep into the moon's crust. They worked in shifts that stretched for 16 hours or more, their bodies bent and broken by the relentless labor. The only light came from the harsh glare of industrial lamps, casting long, distorted shadows that flickered like ghosts on the walls. Adrian's crew walked through the refinery, their boots crunching against the blackened gravel. The air was heavy with the stench of sulfur and burning fuel, and the distant rumble of machinery was a constant, oppressive presence. The workers here were little more than shadows themselves, their faces obscured by soot-streaked masks, their movements slow and mechanical. In a quiet corner of the refinery, Adrian met with Mara ***, a former engineer who had become a leader among the workers. Her voice was hoarse from years of breathing the toxic air, but her words carried a fierce determination. "We've been waiting for someone like you," she said, her eyes glinting in the dim light. "Someone who hasn't forgotten us." Adrian nodded, his expression grim. "You're not forgotten," he said, "and you won't be left behind." Proxima Delta was a world of ghosts. Once a thriving human colony, it had been wiped clean by the Crystar Dominion, its cities reduced to rubble and its people scattered to the winds. Now it was little more than a military outpost, its surface scarred by alien fortifications and patrolled by Crystar soldiers. Adrian stood on a ridge overlooking what had once been the colony's capital. The ruins stretched out before him, broken spires and crumbling walls silhouetted against the blood-red sky. The air was eerily still, the silence broken only by the distant hum of alien machinery. Dr. Alina Price, the ship's science officer, stood beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "They've turned it into a fortress," she said, her voice low. "Heavy defenses, automated turrets, and at least 3 troop divisions stationed here." Adrian's jaw tightened. "They're afraid," he said, "afraid of what might rise from the ashes." Alina glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "They should be." Later that night, while the crew gathered intelligence on the Crystar's defenses, Alina worked in secret to establish contact with the human resistance. Using a hidden transmitter, she sent out a coded message, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. The response came almost immediately, a faint, crackling voice that carried a single word: hope. At every stop, the pattern was the same. The Eclipse Reclaimer found worlds stripped of their humanity, their people reduced to slaves or scattered to the winds. Yet beneath the surface there was resistance. In the shadows of the underwater plants on Europa, in the toxic mines of Titan, and even in the ruins of Proxima Delta, humans were quietly preparing. They gathered weapons, shared information, and waited for the day when they could rise again. For Adrian and his crew, the journey was a painful reminder of all that had been lost. But it was also a source of strength. The suffering they witnessed fueled their resolve, and the whispers of defiance they heard gave them hope. Across the colonies, the embers of rebellion were beginning to glow, and Adrian knew it was only a matter of time before those embers became a fire. As the Eclipse Reclaimer left Proxima Delta, its engines roaring to life, Adrian stood at the viewport, staring out into the endless void. His crew worked silently around him, their faces set with determination. They had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer, but they had also seen the best of what humanity could be. And they would not stop until humanity's light burned bright once more. The Eclipse Reclaimer drifted into orbit above Terra, the cradle of humanity. From the vastness of space, the planet looked deceptively familiar. Its blue oceans, green continents, and swirling white clouds still painted a picture of life. But as the ship descended, the illusion shattered. What had once been a beacon of hope and civilization was now a bleak, industrial husk. The scars of the Crystar Dominion ran deep, and Terra's soul had been hollowed out. The skies were choked with smog, a thick gray veil that dimmed the sunlight and cast the world below in a permanent twilight. The air shimmered with the heat of countless factories, their chimneys belching black smoke into the heavens. The great cities of old, once vibrant with art, culture, and humanity, were gone, replaced by sprawling industrial complexes that stretched as far as the eye could see. The hum of machinery was omnipresent, a relentless drone that seemed to seep into the bones of the planet itself. Adrian Cole stood on the bridge of the Eclipse Reclaimer, his expression grim as he gazed at the desolation below. "So this is what they've done to our home," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. His crew stood silent behind him, their faces reflecting the same mixture of sorrow and anger. Terra was the heart of humanity, and now it was the heart of their oppression. The landing platform was a massive slab of steel, surrounded by towering walls and patrolled by Crystar guards. Their crystalline forms glimmered faintly in the polluted light, their sharp, angular bodies a stark contrast to the humans shuffling about in the background. The workers moved like shadows, hunched and silent, their faces hidden behind soot-streaked masks. Waiting to greet Adrian was Governor Viren ***, a corpulent Crystar whose translucent body seemed bloated with excess energy. His crystalline form was smoother than most of his kind, his edges rounded and polished to a grotesque sheen. When he spoke, his voice was a sickly sweet chime, like glass bells struck out of tune. "Captain Adrian Cole," Viren said, spreading his arms in a mockery of hospitality. "Welcome to Terra, the jewel of the Dominion. It is an honor to host such a distinguished guest." Adrian stepped forward, his face a mask of calm professionalism. "Governor Viren," he replied evenly, "thank you for your hospitality." Viren's crystalline face twisted into something resembling a smile, though it carried no warmth. "I trust you'll find our improvements to your homeworld most impressive," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "We have transformed Terra into a model of efficiency. The humans here have been retrained to serve a higher purpose. No more wasteful individuality, no more distractions like art or family, they are now perfectly obedient. Isn't it remarkable?" Adrian's jaw tightened imperceptibly, but he kept his voice steady. "Remarkable indeed," he said. "It's clear the Dominion has left its mark." Viren chuckled, the sound grating and hollow. "Oh, we've done more than leave a mark, Captain. We've created perfection." The tour of the worksite was a grim affair. Adrian and his crew followed Viren through the sprawling factory complex, their boots echoing against the steel floors. The air was thick with the acrid stench of burning fuel and molten metal, and the heat was oppressive, radiating from the massive furnaces that lined the walls. Workers moved in endless lines, their movements mechanical and devoid of life. Their clothes were tattered, their faces gaunt, and their eyes hollow with exhaustion. The only sounds were the clanging of machinery and the occasional bark of a Crystar overseer. Adrian's gaze swept over the scene, taking in every detail. He noted the positions of the guards, the layout of the factory, and the vulnerabilities in the Dominion's defenses. His crew did the same, their expressions carefully neutral as they catalogued everything they saw. As they passed a line of workers loading crates onto a conveyor belt, an old man stumbled, dropping the heavy load he was carrying. A Crystar guard immediately descended upon him, raising a crystalline baton to strike. Adrian's hand twitched toward his sidearm, but he forced himself to remain still. He couldn't risk revealing their true purpose, not yet. The old man straightened slowly, his movements shaky but determined. His face was lined with age and hardship, his eyes sunken but still sharp. As he lifted the crate again, his gaze met Adrian's, and for a brief moment, recognition flickered in his eyes. Later, as the group paused near a storage area, the old man approached Adrian under the pretense of adjusting his equipment. His voice was a hoarse whisper, barely audible over the din of the factory. "We never stopped believing," he said, his words trembling with emotion. "We knew someone would come back. We knew you would come back." Adrian's chest tightened, but he kept his expression calm. "Stay strong," he murmured, his voice low enough that only the old man could hear. "Your time is coming." The man nodded, a faint spark of hope lighting in his tired eyes. Then he turned and shuffled back to his place in the line, blending once more into the faceless mass of workers. That night, the Eclipse Reclaimer remained docked at the factory's edge, its engines silent as the crew worked in hushed urgency. In the captain's quarters, Adrian sat at a small desk, his face illuminated by the faint glow of a secure communication terminal. His fingers moved quickly over the controls, encrypting the message he was about to send. The words came easily, each one carrying the weight of their mission and the hope of an entire species. Phase 1 is complete. They think we're broken, they have no idea what's coming. He paused for a moment, his gaze drifting to the viewport. Beyond the factory walls, the ruined landscape of Terra stretched out into the darkness, a grim testament to the Dominion's cruelty. But Adrian didn't see the wasteland. He saw the embers of rebellion, waiting to be fanned into a blaze. With a final keystroke, he sent the message, the signal traveling across the stars to the hidden human fleet lying in wait beyond the galaxy's edge. As the transmission ended, Adrian leaned back in his chair, his gray eyes hard with determination. The Dominion thought they had broken humanity. They thought Terra was there. The fleet moved with eerie precision, their stealth systems cloaking them in the void. Not even the faintest ripple of energy betrayed their advance. Kara stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by her officers, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of the station. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every maneuver had been rehearsed. There was no room for error. "Status report," she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Stealth systems holding," replied Commander Rylan, her second in command. "The station hasn't detected us. We're in position." Akara nodded. "Goods, begin phase 1. The order rippled through the fleet, silent and unseen. The warships fanned out, encircling the station like predators closing in on their prey. The tension on the bridge was palpable, a quiet intensity that thrummed through every soul aboard. They all knew what was at stake. There could be no retreat, no second chances. Humanity's survival depended on their success. When the first strike came, it was like a thunderclap in the void. A single missile streaked through the darkness, its sleek black form cutting through the station's defenses before they even realized they were under attack. The explosion lit up the surrounding space, a brief, blinding flare that illuminated the fleet for the first time. Then, chaos erupted. The warships unleashed their fury, torrents of energy and projectiles raining down on the station with surgical precision. The alien defenders scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The fleet's stealth systems had allowed them to strike from the perfect position, and their advanced weaponry tore through the station's defenses like paper. Inside Centauri Nexus, alarms blared as the station's inhabitants scrambled for cover. The sleek, crystalline forms of Crystar soldiers rushed to their posts, their sharp voices barking orders in their alien tongue. But the humans were relentless. Boarding parties breached the station's hull, their black armor glinting in the flickering light as they moved with deadly efficiency. They swept through the corridors like a storm, cutting down any resistance they encountered. Admiral Kara Voss watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the *Resolute ***, her expression unreadable. She felt no triumph, no satisfaction, only the cold determination of a leader who knew the cost of failure. Target their command center, she ordered. Cut off their ability to coordinate. Within hours, it was over. The once mighty communication hub of the Crystar Dominion lay in ruins, its towers shattered, its antennae silenced. Fires burned in the wreckage, casting an eerie glow over the battlefield. The few surviving defenders were rounded up and disarmed, their crystalline forms dulled with defeat. As the dust settled, Kara stood before a communication console, her figure framed by the smoldering remains of the station. Her officers worked silently around her, their faces grim but resolute. The time had come to send a message, not just to the Crystar Dominion, but to the entire galaxy. She activated the console, her image projected across every remaining channel still connected to the station. Her voice was calm and steady, but it carried the weight of a storm. "This is Admiral Kara Voss of the human fleet. We have returned." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meanings. She let them sink in before continuing, her tone sharpening like a blade. "For too long you have oppressed us. You have stolen our worlds, enslaved our people, and tried to erase our existence. But we are still here, and we are not afraid." As she leaned forward slightly, her piercing gaze seeming to cut through the screen itself. "Surrender or face extinction." The transmission ended, her words echoing into the silence that followed. Across the galaxy, those who heard her message would feel its weight, the defiance of a species that had been pushed to the brink, only to rise stronger than ever. As the fleet regrouped, the wreckage of Centauri Nexus drifted silently through the void, a testament to humanity's resolve. On the bridge of the *Resolute ***, Kara stood at the viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. The stars stretched out before her, cold and unfeeling, but she felt the fire of purpose burning within her. Commander Rylan approached, his expression one of quiet respect. "The station is ours, Admiral. The fleet is ready for the next phase." Kara nodded, her gaze never leaving the stars. "Good," she said. "This is just the beginning. The Dominion thinks they've seen war. They have no idea what's coming." Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of destiny. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The skies above Terra burned with fire and fury. The human fleet descended like an unstoppable storm, their black warships cutting through the polluted clouds with deadly precision. Below, the once quiet factories and labor camps erupted into chaos as the Crystar defenders scrambled to respond. Alarms wailed across the surface, their shrill cries swallowed by the deafening roar of human weapons. For the first time in decades, Terra felt the tremors of hope. Colonel Jonas Ward ***, a towering figure of resolve, led the ground assault with unrelenting determination. His battle armor was scuffed and worn, a testament to countless skirmishes, but his eyes burned with the fire of a man who had waited too long for this moment. As the dropships touched down on the barren wastelands outside the labor camps, Jonas was the first to step onto the soil of humanity's stolen home. He knelt briefly, his gloved hand brushing against the dirt, and whispered, "We're back." The assault began with brutal efficiency. Jonas and his soldiers stormed the labor camps, their weapons blazing as they cut through the Crystar guards. The alien overseers, once so confident in their dominance, faltered in the face of the human advance. Their crystalline forms shattered under the relentless firepower, their sharp cries of alarm drowned out by the cheers of the liberated workers. Inside one of the largest camps, Jonas found himself face to face with the horrors of the Dominion's rule. Emaciated figures huddled together in the dark, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief as the human soldiers broke through the gates. "You're free now," Jonas called out, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "No one will ever cage you again." Among the prisoners, an older woman stepped forward, her face lined with years of suffering. She reached out a trembling hand to touch Jonas's arm, tears streaming down her face. "We thought no one would come," she whispered, her voice cracking. Jonas gripped her hand firmly. "We came," he said simply, "and we're not leaving." As the ground forces swept through the camps, the battle raged in the skies above. The alien fleet arrived in full force, their crystalline ships gleaming like jagged stars against the blackness of space. They moved with confidence, their formation tight and their weapons primed. But as they approached Terra, they were met with a sight that froze them in place. Hundreds of human warships hovered in perfect formation, their black hulls reflecting the faint light of Terra's polluted atmosphere. They were silent and still, like predators waiting to strike. The alien commanders hesitated, their confidence faltering as they scanned the fleet. These were not the scattered, desperate ships they had encountered in the past. This was a force unlike anything they had ever faced. The humans struck first. Waves of energy weapons and missiles tore through the alien fleet, their advanced technology overwhelming the Crystar defenses in moments. The aliens tried to regroup, but the humans were relentless. Every move they made was anticipated, every counterattack crushed before it could begin. The battle was over before it truly started. On the bridge of the Resolute Admiral Kara Voss watched the alien fleet disintegrate with a grim expression. There was no triumph in her eyes, only the cold satisfaction of justice long overdue. "Hold your fire," she ordered as the last of the alien ships attempted to retreat. "Let them run, let them carry the message." Below, on the surface, Governor Virin was dragged from his palatial quarters by Jonah's ward himself. The corpulent Crystar official sputtered in indignation, his crystalline form dulled with fear. "You can't do this," he shrieked. "I am a servant of the Dominion, you have no right." Jonas silenced him with a glare that could have cut steel. "You're a servant of no one now," he said coldly. "Your reign is over." As Virin was hauled away, Jonas turned to his soldiers, his voice ringing out over the battlefield. "This is our world," he declared, his words echoing across the desolate plains. "And we're taking it back." 6 months had passed since the liberation of Terra. The scars of the Dominion's rule were still visible, factories lay in ruins, the air was thick with the remnants of pollution, and the land bore the marks of decades of exploitation. But amidst the wreckage, life stirred. The people of Terra worked tirelessly to rebuild, their hands and hearts united in a way they hadn't been in generations. The labor camps were gone, replaced by thriving communities. The factories were being dismantled, their materials repurposed to construct homes, schools, and hospitals. The skies, once choked with smog, began to clear as humanity worked to heal the wounds of their planet. Terra was no longer a symbol of oppression. It was a symbol of resilience. In the newly rebuilt capital, a grand assembly hall stood as a testament to humanity's rebirth. It was here that the former alien oppressors were brought, their crystalline forms subdued and humbled. They were forced to kneel before the very people they had once enslaved, bound by laws that ensured they could never rise to power again. Justice had been served, but humanity's vengeance did not come with cruelty. The aliens were not destroyed but made to understand the cost of their tyranny. Admiral Kara Voss stood on the balcony of the assembly hall, overlooking the bustling city below. The wind carried the sounds of construction and laughter, a melody of renewal that filled the air. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the sun touch her face. It felt different now, cleaner, brighter, as if Terra itself was breathing again. Commander Rylan approached, his expression one of quiet respect. "Admiral," he said, "the fleet is ready. The final preparations are complete." Kara turned to face him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Good," she said, "it's time." Later that day, as the human fleet prepared to depart, Kara addressed the people of Terra one last time. Her voice carried across the airwaves, reaching every corner of the planet and beyond. "Exile didn't destroy us," she began, her tone steady and resolute. "It made us stronger. It taught us who we are and what we can endure. We have reclaimed our home, but this is not the end of our journey. It is only the beginning." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd gathered below. "We will not return to the ways of the past. We will not be conquerors. We will be builders, explorers, and protectors. Humanity's purpose is not to dominate, but to create. To ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising like a wave that echoed across the city. Kara stepped back, her heart swelling with pride and hope. The fleet's engines roared to life, their deep hum reverberating through the air as the ships began to ascend. As the fleet disappeared into the stars, Terra stood as a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of despair, humanity could rise again. They had reclaimed their home, their purpose, and their future. Now they set out to write the next chapter of their story, not as victims, not as conquerors, but as creators of a better galaxy for all.